What's going on, guys, and welcome to Who to Sign For. Now in this series I'm giving you my recommendations on what players to sign for a specific team in career mode. But before we go on, I will say that the signings you'll see aren't designed to be realistic, and that the player ratings and potential of the players may vary depending on what database you're using and how they perform for you during the season. Obviously you don't have to follow all the tips. This is really just a set of guidelines to give you a hand if you're stuck for ideas and want some suggestions on what players you could sign for a certain club. This is mainly aimed at those who are out there who may be new to the game and just need a little bit of advice, or for those of you out there who just want a few recommendations on what players you could sign for a team that you may be using in career mode this year. And I'm so excited for today's episode. Yes, in today's episode of WTSF, we are going to take a look at Bergamo Calcio. Yes, of course, it is Atalanta due to the licensing issues EA have. They've been renamed Bergamo Calcio in the game. They've got generic kits, but Atalanta is, of course, the side it's based on, and this is the team that we're going to be using in today's episode of Who to Sign For. And I can't wait to show you this team because they are such a great team if you want to do a rebuild in career mode this year. Now, they start off with a budget of around £26 million. They're a 4.5-star team. These are their objectives in the first season: finish in the top 4, qualify for the Champions League, reach the quarterfinals of the Coppa Italia as well, and in the Champions League, reach the quarterfinals of that, so against the second knockout round of Europe's Premier competition. Now again, Atalanta are a 4.5-star team. They play a 3-5-2/5-3-2 depending on where you want to place your wing-back/wide midfielders. I always like more defensive stability, so I'd push Goossens and Hartborg down as wing-backs in this team. But the one thing you'll notice with Atalanta is it's a really small squad, and it's an old squad as well. So when I said this is the perfect team for a rebuild, I meant it. It's got some real first team quality. There are some really decent players in this side. However, it needs to get younger. You'll notice as I'm running you through the squad here, there are loads of players in their late 20s and in their 30s as well, including some really important first team players like the captain Rafael Toloi, obviously Ilicic. Do I need to say any more about the great Slovenian Martin Derone? It needs to get younger, and it can get better as well. Such a fun team to use in this year's career mode, absolutely no doubt about it. And Atalanta have just been on a meteoric rise in recent years. Since their promotion from Serie B about a decade ago, Gasperini came in, and I think every year, now correct me if I'm wrong, Italian football fans, please do so, I'm always willing to learn more, but I think since Gasperini came in, Atalanta have qualified for a European competition every single season. I might be wrong about that, but I know the past 2 years they qualified for the Champions League. They're back there again this year. Now, as you can see, a few players out of deals are coming at the end of the year, but personally I would let them all go. So several players on the transfer list, including the Slovenian king Ilicic, and also Frula, the midfielder, 29 years old as well. Both those players in the first 11 right now. You'll notice Atalanta have a lot of players loaned out of the club as well. Now, if you don't want to do this, that's totally fine, but personally speaking, if you're not bothered about realism, I'd recall 2 of those players. They're out on loan at Spurs this year. That's Galini, your goalkeeper, and also Christian Romero, an excellent young centre-back in this game as well. Galini can replace Musso and start in goal for you, and Romero can slide right into your back three. If you're worried about realism, then of course don't do that, but for this series, we don't worry about realism, and it's just a great way to improve your first 11 and give you some much-needed squad depth as well, because this Atalanta side is incredibly thin, and when you're fighting for a top 4 place in the Serie A, reaching the latter stage of the Coppa Italia, and getting to the quarterfinals of the Champions League, you're going to need a thick squad to cope with injuries and fatigue. So yeah, in terms of selling players, we sold Sportiello to Ajax first. He's 29 years old, and once you recall Galini, he and Musso are going to be starting goalkeepers for you. You don't need Sportiello in your reserves taking up a wage which he doesn't justify. But as for Josip Ilicic, obviously since coming in to Atalanta, he's made a name for himself at 3 consecutive Serie A clubs now and done so well in Italian football. But he's been a great source of goals and creativity for Atalanta. But personally speaking, 33 years old, he's going to decline very sharply indeed. You can give him a contract if you want, but just be warned, in the first season he'll decrease in overall very quickly. He'll turn 34 in January. Personally speaking, great creative player, but in my opinion, worth letting go and selling him elsewhere. So we sold him to Bayern Munich for £24 million. That's not a bad deal for a guy in the twilight of his career. So we get around 20 million added to our budget there after the sale to the German Giants. We also get 2 bids for Freuler as well, the Swiss midfielder I referenced earlier, and also 1 for Palomino as well. Again, these are the guys that are in their late 20s or their 30s. They're not going to get any better. They're just going to get worse. You need to make sure you've got long-term replacements for these guys, even though they are all first-team squad members. So we sold Palomino to Latium, another non-licensed club in the game, and after we completed that sale there, that sale plus Ilicic plus Sportiello as well, rose what was a modest transfer budget initially up to around £60 million. And you're going to want to replace the Slovenian king as well. You know, you've got some great attacking midfielders on the bench right now, including Miranchuk, a couple others as well. But personally, I'd recommend someone to come in and replace Ilicic straight away. I've got 5 names on the shortlist, but the 2 I would recommend the most are both playing for Roma. Those are Lorenzo Pellegrini and Nicolo Zaniolo. Now, these guys will cost you a little bit of money. We have to pay 37.5 mil plus a sell-on clause for Pellegrini, but at 25 years old and 81 overall, he's already got great first-team quality now, and by the end of the season, he'll probably be better than Ilicic currently is. And he's also not going to cost you much on the weekly wage as well. One thing with Atalanta you'll want to do is restructure the wage bill here, bring on players on lower salaries, on long-term deals. Pellegrini will probably cost you under 50 grand a week. If you can get him on a 5-year deal, he's tied up for all his prime. And again, class player and so versatile. This guy's a jack of all trades, man. This guy can play deeper, this guy can play further forward, this guy can play right through the heart of midfield. He's got 3-star, medium work rates. He's just like the all-round midfield, central midfield player, you know. He's not slow either. So yeah, really great player to have with 88 stamina as well. This guy's got legs for days. So yeah, definitely recommend Pellegrini. Pellegrini or Zaniolo. Zaniolo will be a little bit cheaper. He is 4 years younger, but also 3 ratings lower. That they both have the same potential. For me though, if you can afford him, I'll bring in Pellegrini to replace Ilicic as your long-term successor. So we sold Freuler to Benfica as well. That put our budget up to around £42 million after the signing of Pellegrini. And the guy I would replace Freuler with, well, it's pretty obvious what I was going for here with Atalanta, rebuilding this side. And I don't know if you guys are the same as me. When I rebuild a club, I like to make a core of players with the same nationality as the clubs. Of course, in this episode, it was going to be Italy. Sandro Tonali, moving on from Brescia and going to AC Milan. He's only 21 years old, but 79 overall. You won't have to pay that much to get him either. You can probably get him for around 35 to 42.5 million pounds. But this guy is just an absolute class holding mid to have in your team. We bought him for 39 million pounds. Again, 79 overall with 87 potential. Dynamic potential means there's no reason why you can't get this guy to 90 overall. He's got a team player trait, you know I love that, the medium high work rate, and again, sitting back, he's pretty decent, but in my opinion, I would transition him to a natural central midfielder, changing from CDM to CM, flip those primary and secondary positions around, and having start him alongside Martin de Roon as part of your midfield duo. De Roon can sit back and protect the back 3/back 5, but Tonali has a little bit more freedom to go forward and utilise his creativity, as he does have a very decent creative side to his game. So once I signed those 2 players here, there wasn't much money left. We brought in the long-term successors for Ilicic and Freuler, and then what I recommend doing with Atalanta, with the little money you've got remaining after the season ticket money comes in, it's just filling out the squad. Now, we mentioned earlier, this Atalanta side is incredibly small. There are just not many players here in Bergamo. It's a good idea to get more squad depth for your team, as again, you're competing in Europe, you're competing for the league, you compete for the cup as well. You're going to need more bodies in your first team squad, and my recommendation is just snapping up a load of young Italian talent to fill out your reserves to build for the future. This is such an aging Atalanta side. You want younger players for long-term successes. If not in the first couple of years, then the many years go by when you're still using Atalanta as part of your long-term project. So we signed Plazzari from AC Milan. He's got 79 potential, so in the future could be good enough to be a starting goalkeeper, if not for the bench. Samuel Ricky also got signed as well. This is a really good young midfielder in the game. 67 overall, but only 19 years old, and has 84 potential as well. Great stamina, ball control, and passing stats already. And again, just 67 overall. When he's at his peak, he'll have great stamina and a great range of passing as well. So definitely recommend signing Ricky as well as you continue to bring in the young Italian talent. Riccardo Sottil from Fiorentina was the third of the remaining guys I signed here. We signed him for just under his valuation. These guys will cost around valuation. You won't have to pay much over their valuation, as clubs won't hold you to ransom over their young, lowly rated players. He is on quite an expensive weekly wage. Unfortunately, you can probably reduce it a little bit more than I did. I paid him 20 grand a week. You can probably get by with like 12 to 15 grand a week, but even so, 22 years old, yes, but 70 overall, and still grows 12 ratings to 82 potential. Very quick, good dribbler of the ball, this guy. So as an impact sub, definitely worth bringing on in late game situations. So Sottil was the penultimate signing I made with this Atalanta side, and the final one was Lorenzo Parola. Now, as we know, this guy's actually an Inter Milan centre-half. He's currently registered and contracted with Inter Milan, but he's out on loan at Monza, and in the game, he's actually an official Monza player. So yeah, he's actually an Inter Milan player, but in the game, registered as a full Monza player. You can sign him again for around valuation. Really good young defender, and he's also got 82 potential as well. So this was a really fun Atalanta side to rebuild in the first transfer window. Give it some much needed squad depth, reduce the average age, bring in some young talents, and all 6 of our signings Italian players as well. So great to assemble an Italian core as part of this rebuild for the future and for the present as well. So we sold 4 players for just shy of £55 million. Ilicic, Freuler, Palomino, and also Sportiello as well. All players in their late 20s or 30s. And we look at the young talent coming in here. The young Italian coming in. Signed 6 players for 85 mils, and the net loss was just under £31 million. So not a big net loss in the first season. You might look at it and say, it's not gotten much better. Pellegrini replacing Ilicic and Tonali replacing Freuler. However, think long term. This is not an Atalanta side where you're asked to win trophies in the very first season and become the best side in Italy and Europe. It's a long-term RTG. You want to lay down the groundwork early, replace those senior players, bring in the young talent, and assemble that Italian core. That's exactly what we did in the first transfer window. This was such a fun team to rebuild. Question is, though, as we simulate to the end of the season, how would we get on with those very free, very strong objectives in the first season with Atalanta? Well, as you can see, we had a European final. But it wasn't a Champions League. Yes, I noticed as I was going through the simulation, we were knocked out of the Champions League. However, there was silverware come the end of the season. We won the Europa League. We beat Bayer Leverkusen as I was processing through. And in the Serie A as well. What a great first season at Bergamo Calcio. Atalanta, of course. Yeah, we finished 3 points behind the eventual winners, Inter, who retained their crown, beating Juve in second, who had the same points record. We were three points behind both of them, though, with 82 points. Really impressive first season for Atalanta, qualifying for the Champions League via the league for a 3rd straight season. And as you can see, the top scorers, the assists and clean sheets charts here, you'll notice that one player really stood out in this Atalanta side, and it's always nice when it's one of the players I bought in. Yeah, Lorenzo Pellegrini had a brilliant first season here, as Galini also won the Golden Glove, getting recalled from Spurs as well. In the Coppa Italia, Juve beat Inter by 3 goals to 1. We were asked to reach the quarterfinals, and we did just that, so we met our cup objective. But the Champions League was the failure out of the 3 competitions. Yeah, in the league and the cup, we hit both our objectives. Over in the Champions League, it was a bit embarrassing. We were knocked out in 3rd place with just 1 win out of 6 games, so quite an embarrassing Champions League campaign. However, made up for by what we did in the Europa League. Yeah, 3rd place in the Champions League goes into the Europa League, and as you can see, our path to the final, we ended up beating Bayer Leverkusen to win some silverware in our first season with Atalanta. So I've got to say, that's a pretty good season in my books. You know, I think that's really, really good. Yeah, the Champions League was a failure, don't get me wrong, but the Europa League, going into that competition and picking up some silverware, what I really like now is that when you get knocked out of a Champions League and go into the Europa League, you'll see that they actually give you a Europa League objective, and that was to reach the final. Once we got knocked out, we went one step further and actually won the whole thing. So yeah, really good season in my opinion, hitting both of those domestic objectives. And yes, we failed the primary European one, but once we went into the Europa League, we exceeded that one and picked up some silverware to go along with a great domestic campaign as well. And we look at the side as well going forward, we've added more depth to it. We've brought in that great young Italian talent that's growing really, really nicely in the very first season. And the star players we brought in, Sandro, Tonali, and also Lorenzo Pellegrini as well, They're going to get really, really good as the years go by. Tonali grew 3 ratings to 82 overall, and watch this. Wait for this. Wait for this. Wait. There it is. I don't know why it took so long to do it, but there we go. I changed the position from CDM to CM. It wasn't completed before I did the simulation, but once I changed his position and flipped the primary and secondary positions around, he grew 2 ratings to 84 overall, 79 to 84 overall, a +5 growth in the first season. Absolute class signing from AC Milan as a long-term successor for Freuler to play as part of your starting CM duo. You know Ricky's going to join him eventually. He's a great signing. Again, Pellegrini this year, 11 goals and 17 assists for Lorenzo Pellegrini, going 3 ratings to 84 overall. And again, I know he's going to cost you a pretty penny, around 37 to 40 million pounds, but as the long-term successor for Ilicic, he is the absolute perfect replacement for the Slovenian king. And when you're assembling this Atalanta team, you know, rebuilding the side, looking for the younger players to step in for the long term and build that Italian core, I gotta say, in this first season, I had so much fun with this Atalanta team. Definitely worth doing a career mode with this year, guys. If you're looking for a side to use in Italy, they need a rebuild, they need a lot of senior players getting replaced, and a core assembled, I cannot recommend Atalanta enough. Yes, no real name, no real badge, no real kits, but a great fun team to use for a challenge and for a rebuild as well. That was it to do sign for, guys. Big thank you for watching. Hope you have enjoyed. If you hadn't, please do drop a like. Much love to you all. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you for the next episode of Who to Sign For. I'm loving these, man. Very soon.